And I think we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Welcome. So yeah, these lives we do once a month for sustaining members and above. We also do a double barrel non-duality once a month for sustaining members and above. So yeah, let's get started. Bears without ears, what's up? Good to see you. Hey, Monica. Hi, Nikki. Katya from Chicago, what's up? Kadams. Hello. Buzzing from the Waldingham retreat. We just got out of the Waldingham retreat a few days ago. Went really well. Elaine and David, what's up? Love and greetings from both of you. Thanks again for everyone involved in making the UK retreat such an amazing experience. Yeah, it was awesome. It was a powerful retreat for sure. I'm going to make an adjustment on my screen here, if you don't mind bearing with me. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Creepy Battenberg, what's up? Hey, Jennifer. Hey, Monica. The call to prayer just went off in Turkey. Good timing. Auspicious. Peter said the UK retreat knocked my socks off. Good. Judy from Thunder Bay, Canada. Hi, Kate. Kate was at Waldingham with us as well. Mott Farron says, so excited to possibly get a chance to talk with someone. 5 decades ago, I was looking for someone to talk with about a breakup enlightenment. I was told, patience, my son. Today? Yeah. New to the group? Excited to be here. Glad you're here. Kisumu Flavor says, hello, everyone. Hello. Anu Parikh. Hello. Anouk. Hello, hello. Quebec. Anyone's from Quebec? All right. I'm going to make another adjustment here. Sorry. My screen does kind of funny things. Acts up a little bit. Let's see. This should be better, I think. Exactly 2 months into what seemed to have been no self-shift, Federate, shadow work before was okay, often emotional, crying, gagging, shaking. Now I've had 3 episodes of GI issues, type sickness. In bed for anywhere between half 2 days. Seems related to shadow. It's really scary while in it, and I also miss work. Any orientation on how to ease this or better support for my process, my body? Yeah, I mean, these illnesses are going to come, right? Of course. But when there's not the barrier of self or the vehicle that feels like a separate self, everything is far more intense. Certainly at first. It's not that the intensity or directness, well, the directness doesn't change. The directness stays the way it is. It's fully direct. Everything is direct. Everything is just fully experienced. But the intensity or the sense of how intense it is or the sense of it being too intense will calm down a lot. So I mean, I could give you some quote unquote advice, but there's no advice other than the process will teach you everything you need to know. The experience will teach you everything you need to know about total immersion. And it'll just suddenly just be completely gone too. Even though when you're in it, it feels so total, it'll also be just totally gone. And so things are very dynamic that way. Yeah. But I understand. It can be a lot. Emotions too. Emotions can be super like, whoa, completely all encompassing, but then they tend to just move through quickly. Hotel Cartel says, happy to be here, or excited to be here my first time. Monica asks, would you say Fetters 4 and 5 are about reactivity? Yes. And Fetter 9 is about resistance? Yes. I sense I broke reactivity, but I feel resistance. So to work on it, I look for Fetter 9 videos. No, you would do more like, if you're talking about the Fetter model as laid out by Kevin Chanelek, you want to do like 6 and 7. Mm-hmm. Yep. So work through 6 and 7 knowing that there's going to be resistance. There's going to be the sense of self hanging around the background, coming and going. But if there's no overt reactivity, which basically means the perception that I need to do something about what's happening is gone. What's happening is just what's happening. And you realize that there's no, you're not going to change it by reacting to it. That's what reactivity fetters are about. But there's still a sense of self and other, still a sense of physicality and objects and world and self and time and space. If all that's still kind of fully intact, then I would work through the non-dual fetters. So I would work in the non-duality list. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And just know you're going to have resistance patterns for some time. This one's from May All Beings Know Peace. My self-inquiry has had me looking for myself behind my field of vision, experiencing it. I've been told that I shouldn't do it that way and instead look for it everywhere. Wondering if you have any input. Kind of depends what you're doing. If you're working on First Awakening, if you're working towards First Awakening, I wouldn't look for a self in a specific place because you're kind of doing body scanning then, which is fine. But the First Awakening is not about finding a specific self or a location of self. And it's, in my opinion, not really always about, well, certainly not always about finding that you're not going to find a self, although paradoxically, often it looks like that from the other side of it. It's like, oh, I saw that there's no separate self. That's what someone would describe as a First Awakening. Other peoples will describe it as discovering the I am sense. So those sound totally paradoxical. They sound contradictory, but they're actually not. What it's really seeing is that the thought-based, memory-based I sense of that self that struggles so much and feels so small and enclosed in thought and enclosed in mind, that is just not, that's not the totality of what's happening. There's a far more vast experience of what's happening. I would call that consciousness, but it's not the concept of consciousness. So just learning what I just said doesn't help. You have to realize it directly. So instead of looking somewhere specific, I would say, notice that the apparatus to look here or there or direct attention, all that, that's fine that it's there. And also notice that there's something happening, something present that is not just that at all. It's far beyond that. That's part of it, but it's far more all-encompassing. Like it's the thing you can't find. It's the one thing you can't find because it's not ever not been there. Right? So it's less of a narrowing down effect. The First Awakening, it's much more of a widening effect, if that helps. So then you might ask, well, why does self-inquiry help? Well, it depends how you use it, and it doesn't work for everybody. But what self-inquiry is doing is saying, well, I take myself to be this thought. And then you realize, like, wait a minute, I'm not a thought. Thoughts come and go. What doesn't come and go, right? That's the kind of self-inquiry that's helpful. Or seeing like, well, clearly I'm not that thought, so what am I? And then you could notice another thought. Well, I'm not that thought either, obviously. And then you just, at some point, you start resting back in this sense of just being. Some people would call that I am sense. Because there's nowhere else to look, right? Once you've seen, well, you're not any thought that arises, obviously. So for me, it stops becoming as much about who are you, like in a very literal sense, but more about what's the nature of being itself. Is that helpful? Okay. Yeah. Okay. This one's from Anu. Angela, my mind seems to be very fluid and hard to pin down. That's okay. Don't try to pin it down. Sometimes some insight is there, but it is forgotten in a few minutes. No problem at all. See, this is one of those things that's like a misinterpretation, but the misinterpretation isn't your fault. The misinterpretation is the functioning of mind. This is what mind does. It tries to pin things down, narrow things down, get around. People say this a lot, like, oh, if I could just get my mind around what you're saying. No, I don't want you to get your mind around what I'm saying. I want you to let go of the need to keep referencing thoughts. You don't need to pay attention to anything in that way. You don't need to pay attention to any specific thing at all. It's not about that. So don't try to pin anything down. Just notice what it is that you can't pin down. Notice what it is that doesn't need to be pinned down. It is the pinning down, and it is that which is pinned down, and it is the awareness of anything being pinned down at all. Right? Pinning down consciousness is like nailing a nail into the wind. Pinning down your true nature is like putting a sticky note on the sky. It's like doesn't even make sense. Yeah. This is from Arvorn. Back from the UK retreat, and the first workday was overwhelming. I can't keep up with feelings after a big upgrade of the felt sense. Today I'm calming down and integrating the new super skills. Yeah. It's an adjustment to come back from retreat. Big shifting of gears, right? And you can be in workplaces and in complex environments with a lot of feeling, but it takes some adjustment. Right? At first, it may not feel like you can. It's like your attention and your bandwidth is on the feelings and felt sense. So when you go back to work, you're like, oh shit, my attention's usually in thoughts. So now I have to put it back in thoughts. It seems like that, right? But over time, you'll actually adjust. But I'm not going to say it's overnight. It's like, I can't wave my magic wand and just make it that easy for you or for anyone, because it does take time. It takes some time to readjust where your attention goes chronically, or habitually, or in certain situations, especially like stressful or work situations. Okay, this one's from Katya or Kasha. I'm not sure how you pronounce. Would it be accurate to say that the universe is breathing you into existence? That's a nice way of saying it. Decisions are being made, yes. Events are unfolding, yes. And all you can do is place your attention in your immediate experience. Technically, if you want to speak in those terms, you can't even do that. The you in the equation is just extra to me. Right? So when they say the universe is breathing, well, why do you have to put you in that? The sense of you, if you're experiencing, well, you're not experiencing it, from this experience of universe breathing, which does happen. It is an experience. It is a realization. It's called like sometimes total exertion by Dogen, universe breathing. But what I want to say about this is, when that is clear, there's no sense of a you in it. How could there be a separate you from it? Like, that's not how it is. The way it is everything in the universe is the universe, and everything in the universe is the breathing, and the breathing is the universe, and the universe is the breathing. It's all kind of the same thing in a way, but it's not a thing. Cool. Rochambeau says, hi, nice to be part of this community. Welcome. Glad you're here. This one's from Aido-san. Didn't get a chance to speak to you after retreat, but thanks to you and the other facilitators and the retreatants for making it such a special week. You're welcome. This is from user MJ6. How can I uncover hidden resistance to awakening? Okay. Hidden resistance to awakening. This is really good because occasionally I will bump into somebody who will say, like, I am trying harder than anyone. Like, they don't say it this way, but it's implied. I'm trying harder than anyone ever tries to wake up. I've done, and they'll give me a list of things they've done and how many years they've done. It's like a resume, like convincing me how hard they try and how much they want it. And I can feel the wanting in it. but I also feel something that hidden that they don't want to see. Now, I'm not saying this is you, but this pattern helps me understand what you're saying and helps me address it. And what I want to say to this person is like, quit focusing on why you think you want to wake up or should, or why maybe you've been cheated out of it or something. Focus more on why you don't, because there's a reason you don't want to wake up as well. There's a competing agenda for sure. You may not register that you don't want to wake up, but if you look at it a different way, you'll register it. Like, what are you afraid of letting go of? Right? And do you see how that works? Like, if you have this immense drive and desire to wake up, you might not want to let go of that desire. You might not want to let go of other hidden beliefs, or maybe not so hidden beliefs about what awakening is going to give you. That's what you don't want to let go of. So sometimes for some people. So yeah, it's good that you actually ask the question, what might I be hiding from myself, I guess is one way of saying it. It's good. It's good to be curious about this. So ways to ask would be, what am I hiding from myself? What am I afraid to let go of? What are my beliefs about what awakening is going to give me? Really look at that one, because some of these beliefs are hidden, right? But I can tell you the common things are like, you think it's going to give you validation. You think it's going to give you love. You think it's going to make you feel good all the time. And then you conveniently overlook when people tell you like, that's not going to happen. None of those things are what awakening gives you. And you think it's going to give you the descriptions people tell you, right? Like about their own awakening, like flow. Oh, I was in this flow state and, everything was open and empty and free and clear and peaceful. And you want that, right? I'm not saying that those things aren't part of the awakening process for many, but the way you're going to register it, and more importantly, the way to realize it is not through wanting it. The wanting is the seeking. The wanting is a lot of times the obstruction. So just look at that really clearly and see that clearly that awakening is not here to give you what you think it's supposed to give you. It's not here to give you what you want. It's not here to give you what you don't want. It's just not about you in that way. It's about truth. So when you're really willing to just let whatever comes forward come forward with awakening, then all of a sudden the awakeness really starts to reveal itself. And it's not like it's even waiting for you to do that either. I don't want to make it seem like it's like the price for admission and there's some gatekeeper out there. There's not. It's just that when you resonate with truth, truth comes forward. Truth becomes obvious. It reveals itself. That's the best way I can say it for the moment. Okay. Marco also was at the retreat. Glad you were there. Achoyan says, it's been a while, been a minute. Yeah. Pope Chakake. Sorry, I could be totally mispronouncing this. Could be like shortened as well. What should I do if a skin condition is causing discomfort, annoyance, and anger, and I'm starting to feel like getting help won't matter because the physical suffering will still be there? Well, I don't know about the not getting help part, because it may help. In the relative, it sure could. So I don't know how to address that, because you can't know until you try, right? But if it's discomfort, annoyance, and anger, feel them. Really feel them. Don't try to fix them. The feelings, the emotions that are resulting. Notice that intense sensations and emotions often quiet the mind, actually. If you drop in. If you avoid, they stir the mind up. But if you really drop into a feeling state, an emotion state, the mind actually gets quite calm. The spirit gets calm. I know this because I guide people through it when we're doing deep shadow process pretty frequently. And at first they may have a lot of like, I can't do it, I don't know, and dissociating thoughts and like distraction. And the more I dial them into it, or the group dials them to, or they dial themselves into it, the more they realize like, oh, I can just really go down into that. It's so simple. So when emotions come up around anything, but around awakening, around health things, they're an invitation to feel it more directly. Down in your body. Go down in there. Feel it. That's my advice. Be patient. Things change all the time, of course. Barnaby says, thoughts on thoughts that are still sticky and seem to reinstate a thinker or identity after realization. Well, if it's after realization, just be relaxed but meticulous with that. Because you see a thought, you know that the thought does not reflect an actual identity. Can suggest it, but it certainly isn't going to prove it. And the realization shows you that it's not pointing to it. It's not pointing to an identity, not a specific, structured, separate, thought-based identity. Clearly, right? So being meticulous, being particular about that, especially if you're getting caught in thoughts a lot, lost in thoughts, distracted constantly, fantasizing. When that's happening, it's like just be a little bit more meticulous. Noticing a thought as a thought, realizing again and again, like, yeah, that's not pointing to a me. It's just a thought. And when you're on track with that, you're going to start feeling emotion. You're going to start feeling sensations in the body more and more. And the instruction is the same. Just be meticulous. Stay with it. Don't run from it. Feel it, Okay. Hey, Anne. Nice to hear from you. Greg says, banger of a retreat. You're welcome. Yeah. Jennifer, death has become visceral since the retreat. When I hear of others dying, it's like I'm dying. There's nothing blocking the fear. Yet it's not a barrier. It's mesmerizing to be with this. That's beautiful. Wow, that's beautiful. Death is a part of life. Death is a part of life. No life, no birth without death. Native cultures know this. Indigenous cultures know this. They live with it. They live far more directly with it. Probably why they don't have anxiety, or not nearly like industrialized cultures do. Elaine and David said, Angelo, is there a correlation between the energetic characteristics of the ninth fetter, discontent, dissatisfaction, etc., and the feelings and emotions arising from existential wounds? David. Okay, I want to make a little bit of a clarification. Discontent is not exactly what I would call the ninth fetter. Discontent is usually more like fourth and fifth fetter because it implies that things could be different. I mean, I'm interpreting the word discontent, of course, like it's open to interpretation, but discontent's to me, a little more like, no, it shouldn't be this way. I wish things were other than they are. Like, why is that going that way? Why is my body acting this way? Why is that person doing that? That's a little more 4 and 5, right? So it's that subtle, well, sometimes not subtle at all, but sometimes it's a very subtle belief that the world should be different than it is because I want it to be, right? That's a little more like discontent to me. Dissatisfaction as well, right? Dissatisfaction is a little more, could be on both sides. But ninth fetter is more like restlessness. It's more like a sense of like urgency that is nondescript. Like it doesn't have a story at all. It doesn't have anything to push on. It's not pushing on a situation or not even really pushing on a person. It's not pushing on a you. It's just this kind of intense energy that wants to go somewhere, wants to do something. And if you interpret it through thought, the interpretation will be something needs to be fixed or addressed. That's more like ninth fetter, okay? It's very physical. And the correlation between that and feelings and emotions arising from the existential wounds. It's a great question. The existential wounds are larger patterns and behavior, larger developmental patterns, belief, and behavior patterns. So they're a little more complex than both of these delineated the way we normally do, like reactivity from resistance or restlessness. However, all of the wounds have layers of reactivity built into them because they're distortions in perception of relative self. So there's reactivity threaded through all of them in one way or another. The type of reactivity varies. Fight versus flight versus freeze, right? You could say that as just general categories of how we react. In fact, some of the reactions are high-functioning reactions, like the inversion wound. But the reactions are based on misperceptions about control and our place in the world and what we can do and what we can't do. So there is reactivity in all of them. But what fuels all of that is resistance. Always. It's also how you adopted the wound in the first place. It's why the wound can stay fueled, right? So it's both, I would say, in those cases. And like any of this, no matter how much trauma you have or the way you process trauma or how much work you've done on trauma or wounding or reactivity patterns, or however you want to talk about it, when the eighth fetter drops or when the self-structure is seen through, you will always face some resistance pattern, some resistance patterns, some resistance textures, some restlessness. Everybody will. And that's, if you want to call it a wound, we could call it the fundamental wound of the self-illusion. It's the residue from the self-illusion. Even though the self-structure has fallen, the residue that has accumulated is there. It's karmic, right? So everybody has that wound, if you want to call it a wound or trauma or whatever. But it doesn't feel like a trauma so much. It feels like a natural force. It's like the animating force of life filtered through a complex enough nervous system, let's say, that it can seem to have the sense of being able to be directed. And then when the self vehicle is there, then it's a whole other story, right? Then it's, changes everything. Creates a false world, creates a false self, all of that, right? It gets very complex very quickly. But without a self-structure, it just feels like this need or belief that some energy can be directed, and it's an intense energy. It's life energy. Same energy that gives us the ability to fight and flight and procreate and forage and all the things life forms do. Good question. Living Archive says, hi, Angelo, first time joining. Welcome. Kali Yoga, hello. Gratitude to you too. Jack says, hello all. Thank you for doing these. Last month or so of following this work has already been a huge change, and I have a lot of gratitude. You're welcome. Hello, Olga. It says, hello, my first time here. Nice to join the group. Greetings from Warsaw. Beautiful. I have a couple friends from Poland. Kogan and his brother, Sanjong, both monks. One a Zen monk. Well, they're both Zen monks. One's Korean Zen, one's Japanese Zen. Both from Poland. Welcome. Fred, what's up? Raise hand. Okay, ask a question. Sheila says, hi, Angelo. I've recently been seeing the thoughts trying to prevent me from continuing the process. Wow, a litany of thoughts. Ping-ponging my emotions until I see through them. So worth it. It's funny, right? Thoughts will tell you they want you to wake up. They tell you that you want to wake up. And then sometimes they fight you on it, right? Kind of shows you how thoughts are. They're very binary. They need something to push on, right? They need to struggle one way or another. Pretty crazy, right? Bud, good morning from Alaska. Hey, Chadwick. Good to see you. This is from Sapir. Hi, Angelo. I just joined to say how much I appreciate you and what you're doing. Definitely, you are my top 2 favorite teacher ever. Truly love you, man. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, right on. Who's your number 1 favorite teacher? Echo. Are there going to be more opportunities to come to Colorado? Yeah. I think she's talking about circling deep shadow process, and we will hold more of them in Colorado and other places. Yeah, trying to do some more of that. Frippadon says, discomfort seems to be central in this experience after the shift. I can't escape anymore, and there is so much to feel through. I'm open to that. This can stay the rest of this apparent lifetime. Input. That's a really good approach. That's a really good orientation that it's okay. Like, this can be here. It's not that the discomfort wasn't there when you were mind identified. This is kind of like general statement. It's just that there's something it's a magic trick that the thoughts do when you're identified with them, where we can actually somehow we're avoiding a lot, but we can avoid the acuity of pain we're in. Of course, the downside is that then it gets directed through unhealthy channels. Can harm ourselves, can harm others, can lead to all kinds of health problems, all kinds of things. So now we get to see it directly. The discomfort can feel somewhat continuous at times after awakening, certain parts of the after awakening process. The longer you're with it, the more it becomes variable. It won't feel like a continuous discomfort. There will be times of discomfort for sure, and there'll be times of comfort. There'll be times of peace and bliss, and there'll be times of contraction, right? But all of that is necessary. All of that texture, all of that contrast is necessary for the system to kind of clear its resistance patterns. That's a simple way of putting it. But yeah, be patient. But your orientation is great. Mm-hmm. Ramiba says, after the retreat, I felt a lot of energy moving through my body and my heart feels great, but my mind is going into overdrive. Yeah. Yeah, the mind sometimes becomes rebellious. It'll calm down over time. Yeah. Aido-san says, such a gift to be able to sit with emotions during retreat. Harder in real time in everyday life. Requires practice. Been recruiting them once I get home. Been recreating them once I get home. Less intensity, but still an ache there. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's accurate. It does get easier outside of retreat, for sure, with some time. Yeah. This is question here. It says, I am doing shadow work, but can't figure out why my girlfriend's parents cause me panic and anxiety. They are super nice people. My mom is distant and father was alcoholic. Could be because they're super nice, right? If you're not used to that, if you're used to parents who are distant, if you're used to being close to people who are more distant, and all of a sudden people are present with you, available, kind to you, it's a little scary. And there's 2 ways of saying that. One is one is saying that it's mistrust. I'm not sure if I trust them. I'm not used to that. Why would they be doing that, right? But there's another, I think, a deeper truth to it that's probably more accurate, even though they can simultaneously exist. I think the deeper truth is that your system is revisiting some of those early developmental bonding emotions. Like the fear of abandonment, but at a very young age, is really terrifying. But we forget how scary it is. The fear of being alone, fear of abandonment from a parent, your primary caretaker. It's very scary for little ones. But we forget that because we bury it with a bunch of adult identities and thoughts and all of it. But you start to revisit that as you wake up, and you start to revisit, or you may revisit it when somebody around you just feels very safe to you. So the safety isn't what's triggering. The safety is what's allowing you to get down to the repressed emotion around that stuff, especially if you had parents who weren't attentive and available to you. Does that make sense? It's like reparenting a little bit. Yeah. Sumu has a second part here. Okay. Basically, it's saying like if you're feeling emotions, energies from other people or around other people, it may be like, okay, in presence, when you don't feel like a strong sense of self, it's, you may notice it around people. You may suggest or suspect it's from somehow related to them, or you may be feeling their stuff. But when you're feeling contracted, it may come out like as like kind of anger toward them, right? Maybe a little resentful. Yeah, I get it. I totally understand that. The self, the contracted self, sees everything dualistically. You're over there, I'm over here. I was feeling fine until you showed up. And then with your energy and stuff that I have to feel. Yeah. And some of it's true. Some of it's that their patterns are triggering patterns in you. With time, that will definitely calm down. At some point, it doesn't happen anymore, really. Like, I'm aware of other people's energy. I feel what they feel pretty quickly, pretty fluidly, I would say. I can tell when people are repressing. But even if it feels somewhat uncomfortable in the moment, because I'm feeling their discomfort, in a sense, there's not a reaction to it at all, and it's fine. And then if I move away from that person, if I'm out of their space, it's pretty much just gone. So that's what I find it evolves into, something where it's like you're still aware of it, but it's not a problem. You don't hold on to it. It's not affecting you at like an identity level. It's just a momentary experience. And when the sense of self and others really certainly not a primary experience. It's not an actual experience. It's a practical experience, right? You could say practically speaking, you're aware of it, of course. But in that case, it's like there's no reaction, There's nothing at the instinct level that's saying, oh, I got to get away from this. Take that as you will, but that's my experience. That's the ultimate rectification of the issue, is the non-dual nature of it all. Okay. Let's see. This is Arnaud says, I was blown away by the deep shadow process at retreat. Is there a way I can be trained in it as a therapist based in the EU? Well, what I tell people when they ask this, because I've had a good number of people ask, is I'd like to train people, but we are already training a few people. But it's a slow process. It's not like taking a workshop. I mean, I would never want to just say, here's a workshop on doing circling and then turn people loose. No way. You see how intense it is, and you see how nuanced it is. And, you're really down in there with people. You're like in their drama and in their existential wounds and all of it, right? So you got to know what you're doing. So it's not a fast process. So I can't train like a whole bunch of people really fast. It's just not going to happen. So right now we don't have really openings to train people because I'm working with a handful of people already. If I do, I'll let you know. But the more simple and honest answer is get as much experience as you can. It doesn't matter if you're training as a facilitator or you're just in the circling. It's the same thing. It doesn't really matter. You just need the experience, right? So, if you're in Europe, it's a little trickier because Inside Circle is here. I'm here. We do some of it. We're doing more of it. But just get in anytime you can. Inside Circle does intensives. They do online stuff. So check their site out, check their materials out, check their facilitators out. You can work with their facilitators, like on Zoom if you want to. There's a lot of ways to go about it, but just get as much experience as you possibly can. It's not like there's some secret set of principles that's like, here's how you circle with people. What makes it work is that you know the space, and you know the space by knowing your internal space. You can never go anywhere with somebody that they can't go. So it's just a matter of just exposing yourself to the process as much as possible. Yeah. And it's kind of a lifelong commitment. So there's no reason to be impatient about it. It's going to take a few years, a handful of years to, be ready for something like that. The facilitators who do it in Inside Circle consider the fact that they worked together for 25 years. So, you know what I mean? But I love it. I'd love to have a much wider platform to teach and work with people and do it more frequently, but it's just not where we're at right now. But we'll try to keep offering more of it. Quite a trip, though, isn't it? This is from Known as Jennifer. I have a question about space and spaciousness. I'm working on the 6th and 7th fetter and can see that there's no space in the felt sense and sound. It's much stickier in the visual field. Yeah. Yeah, like it's a very, this approach in the 7th fetter specifically, or non-duality, it's a very subtle contemplation. For one thing, Jennifer, is look in my playlist. I have a long playlist on non-duality. Look for any of them that work in the visual field. I have things where for like an hour I'm pointing to the visual field stuff. So look at those, because those are all just different nuanced ways of doing what you're talking about. But the simple direction is, just like it says in the Bahia Sutta, it's like, in the scene, there is only the seen. So in the scene, look at what there isn't. Ask yourself questions, right? In the scene, is there a head? Is there a Jennifer? Is there an I? Those ones are more obvious, unless you're looking in a mirror. Then you'll start labeling. But first of all, is there a subject? Is there a body? Then it's more like, okay, is there an object? You'd be like, oh, there's a lamp over there. What do you really see? Do you see a lamp over there? Or do you see what you see, and then your mind is adding lamp and over there? Does that make sense? So it is helpful to do a little deconstructive inquiry in this way. But the primary methodology is keeping your attention in the scene. In the scene, there's only the scene. It doesn't mean in the scene, make it so there's only the scene. In the scene, there is only the scene. It's like selling water by the river. It's like saying water is wet, and yet it's a very radical statement compared to the way most people experience it or think they experience it. Cool. This one's, may all beings know peace. That's helpful, Angelo. Okay, good. Known as Jennifer. Why is there so much talk of spaciousness and unbound and openness? My mind equates these with space. Can you speak to this? Because the first awakening feels like that. That's it. Consciousness. That's why. Consciousness. Consciousness is often called the sixth sense gate, sixth sense faculty. In the Pali Canon, right? In the Buddhist doctrine. But experientially, it's very much like that. But it has an added quality or qualities that the others don't. First of all, it has the ability to reflect. It has the ability to reflect in a way that feels inward. Right? Self, you're not going to find a self in the visual field or even the illusion of a self. You can't. You're only going to find it in the sense faculty of consciousness. That's one. It has this reflective capacity. The other, though, is it feels spacious, at least in contrast to the sense of being centered. Both of those exist only in consciousness. This is why people can be very surprised what non-duality actually means. It's not that. Non-duality isn't spacious consciousness. And it's not everything in the world is made out of consciousness, and consciousness is primary and the universe is appearing in it. That is not what non-duality is. That's the realization of consciousness. That's first awakening. And its implications of first awakening that have become somewhat conceptual, right? Does that make sense? So the expansiveness, we're talking about openness, oceanic nature is consciousness. It's the first awakening. Good question. Kisumu says, is it possible that the energy is from others, but the story is mine? Yeah, it is like that. The reaction is yours. Taking it on board is yours. Because sure, say another person has a bunch of repressed emotion and you're around them, right? You could say you're feeling their emotions, sure. But as soon as you're not around them, how could that be theirs anymore? You've made it theirs. You've made something that's happening in you theirs. Does that make sense? So while you can pick it up from people, when you continue to react to it internally, that's your responsibility. Bouncing it around in your mind, Yeah. This is Burke. Hi, Angelo. I've come in touch with a deep frustration type energy in my chest. I think I've been running from it literally forever. Tiny things make me steam, like my kids doing literally anything. Oh, I know what you mean. I know that pattern, which is why I want to work with it in the first place. I'm afraid I'll explode on them. My main question is it necessary to do the work-esque shadow work? Isn't screaming and writhing, isn't screaming and writhing, which I've done, a reaction to the energy? Or would it be better to do nothing about it and just let it do its thing? Well, it's a combination of both. When we do deep shadow process, there may be some screaming or writhing, but that's not all of it. There's more to it than that, for sure. And where it comes full circle is when you start looking at beliefs. So the screaming is still a kind of energetic avoidance of something. Like in the documentary, you saw, these guys screaming and yelling, but ultimately they dropped in. That's the key. They dropped in and that became calmness. That's when you're feeling. So the yelling and gnashing of teeth can be really strong physical resistance patterns to feeling. Before that, it's just intellectual dissociation, right? Not even knowing you have feelings. But yeah, so there can be, especially if the emotions are repressed, there can be an intense layer that has to kind of express, or I don't know if it has to, but it does sometimes before you can really drop in. But the key is two things: dropping in, and in your case, looking at some beliefs. So what is it that triggers you about kids, right? Just slow down and look at what your mind is telling you. Write it down. You don't even have to do it in real time. Just sit down and if it's a common pattern, sit down and go, okay, well, when my kids are doing this and this, that's what really makes me mad. Could be where they put their dishes, could be when they're being loud or running around being kids, whatever. Sit down and go, okay, when I see that happening, I feel this sensation, right? And then what does my mind tell me? My mind tells me I have to stop them or what will happen? That's on you. Like, look and see. What do you think is going to happen if you don't? Right? And why do you think that? And where did you learn that? So inquiry is going to be your friend as well. Because I can tell your heart's in the right place. You don't want to yell at your kids and lose it and all that. But you also don't want to continue to repress something you don't even understand. So unpack it. Learn, really learn. Write it out. I'm afraid that if I let my kids keep doing whatever, what's going to happen? And I'll give you a hint. A hint is it usually makes the parent feel out of control. Right? Like you may have a fear of being out of control or feeling out of control. It doesn't mean you are, and it doesn't mean anything the kids are doing has to do with your control. They're just being kids most of the time, right? You don't have to control them. You might shape their behavior. You might learn to sort of dance with what's going on with them to keep them within certain limits of what's reasonable inside a house or something. All those things, are part of parenting. But usually the fear is like, oh my God, if I don't just stop them right now, something's going to get out of control. And often you don't even know what it is. Like, meaning the fear is like something's going to happen and you won't be prepared for it. So look into your own childhood. When did you encounter that? When did you encounter a situation with a parent or a mentor or someone who was in charge of you in some way, who couldn't let you express fully, or they didn't think they could let you express fully as a child, shut you down? And just feel into that, It may or may not be obvious right away, but it might be. You might remember exactly where this came from. And so to me, like looking at it from all these different sides is very helpful, for several reasons. One is it gives you a sense of something you can do. Not control, but understanding. Control is an illusion. Understanding is enlightenment. Seeing closely in what's actually going on here. So yeah, be patient with yourself. Give yourself permission to discover all this. Give yourself permission to feel anger or frustration as well, which sounds like you are. It happens. It comes up. Every parent has felt frustration with their kids. Every parent has felt anger. It's going to happen. Yeah. Every parent's felt like they don't know what to do either. Sometimes, it's like, don't know how to navigate this particular situation with your child, right? It's going to come up. But it is possible to be okay with that. And so it's totally possible to be okay with just not quite knowing what to do in that given moment. Use your resources. If you have a partner, talk to your partner. You don't have to say like, I'm losing it. I can't handle this. I can't handle parenting, and I'm afraid my anger is going to be destructive or something. You could say that, but you could also just say, what do you think we could do to like help when Junior starts setting the couch on fire or whatever? Like just work with your ally, work with your partner, and just be like, yeah, do you have any ideas of things we can do to give them something more productive to do, or help them focus a little more instead of whatever, discharging a bunch of energy in ways that aren't helpful right now, or, so that way you don't feel alone, right? You do the inquiry so you feel like there's something you can do, so you feel like you're understanding more. You work with your partner or your allies, whoever they are, to feel like you're not alone anymore. You'll start to feel more like you have options and there's things you can do. And one of the other things is just, it's okay to admit to your kids, like, parenting can be frustrating. It's okay for you to say that to them. Like, I'm your parent. I love you. In some ways, I have to help shape your behavior so that you don't hurt yourself and that you grow up a healthy, functioning being. And at the same time, sometimes it's like, I feel frustration. It's not your fault that I feel frustration. That's a really good thing to tell your child, because children are perceptive. They know if you're frustrated at some level. They may not even know the word frustration, but they see it on your face, right? But if you just tell them, hey, sometimes I feel frustrated because parenting is challenging, and it's not your fault at all. It's my thing, but I just want you to know, like, I'm doing my best, and maybe they can make suggestions. Who knows? Communication. Just stay in communication channels with yourself, your partner, and your kids, and be willing to feel whatever you need to feel. It's okay. Give yourself space to feel it. Yeah. Good question. Very practical, important question. Kat says, the answers I seek are in the not knowing. I like that. Yeah, sometimes people will approach awakening with this idea of like, it's going to give you all your answers, right? It's going to answer all the philosophical questions you have. And that's a really misdirected idea about awakening. It's okay if people have it, but it's misdirected in that it's not like that at all. That's not what awakening gives you. It will show you a perspective that's so different that you will be surprised how little you care about that afterward. But it doesn't answer your philosophical questions in some way, really. Not in the way that you expect it will. So it's interesting. It's from Daniel. Looking forward to the retreat in October. Question is how to deal with the frustration hearing that it is already here, but my current experience is not that. It feels like a cruel game of semantics. Yeah. Well, cruel is an interesting word, right? Stands out to me. Like, when I say that's already here, do I look like I'm being cruel to you? Like I'm trying to hurt you? Like, do you see something in me that suggests that? Yeah. Cruelty is an interesting thing to project onto this interaction, yeah? Because in one sense, I could say I'm doing the best I possibly can to get across something that's very difficult, if not impossible, to get across in words. But it's coming from a place of compassion. It's also coming from a place of recognition that it's already in your experience. So the reason I'm pointing at this is the words are revealing, right? The words are the mental formations in your mind that are distracting you. The words are pointing to the mental formations that are distracting you. And if it feels like there's this sense of cruelty, like, is the universe cruel? Where did that come from? Where did your sense, like outside of this conversation or the particular statement you're talking about, where did the sense of cruelty come from? Like what is that about? You know? So maybe I could say something like, if that feels familiar somehow to you, that life is cruel to you somehow, or there's a cruelty in the way life feels, then what you're blaming it on is not the realization, because realization is not that, right? The paradigm of cruelty, the paradigm of, some people have it with like competitiveness, like somebody else has it and I don't, right? Like a jealousy almost. Same thing with that. It's like, you can't blame that feeling on the awakening, because it's that feeling that's keeping you absorbed in your own mental process in a way. It's a kind of narrowing your view. Everything's a clue. So if your view is being narrowed into that, just notice that happening. And what I'm saying is, let go of your narrowed view on that particular issue. Let go of the narrowness of it and let the view open. Let the aperture open. Don't insist that that's what's happening, right? Don't insist that your view is accurate, because it's a view. No view is accurate. That's what awakening shows you. No view I hold could be accurate. No view you hold could be accurate in this way, when it comes to awakening, for sure. So see if you can see the narrowness of a view, including like, why can't I wake up? Why do other people have it? Why is this cruel? And see, like, wait a minute. Why am I gripping that view? Makes me feel like shit. Makes me feel uncomfortable. And Angela's telling me that's not what he's pointing to. I'm not pointing to the view. I'm not pointing to any view. I'm pointing to the fact that you don't have to grip the view. You don't have to keep holding onto that view, because it's not delivering the goods. So sometimes there's a kind of stubbornness or rebellion maybe. And I had it myself, but somehow I lucked out and turned it around on the mental process itself. It can kind of Ouroboros itself, right? It can devour itself if you look at it right. You kind of get tired. I mean, I got tired of it. So it's possible you can get tired of that view, that paradigm of life cheating you, or the cruelty, or the not having something, like, or the endlessly seeking something that's not here. You can actually become rebellious to that, seeing how much pain it's causing you. Seeking is painful. Try that. And then when you just kind of discard that view, you might see something very different suddenly, because it's not a view. Yeah? I don't know if that helps, but I think I beat that one to death. This is from Barb Awake. You said in a previous interview that doing heavy cognitive effort sometimes is difficult after realization. Can you elaborate? Yes. The simple way I can say it is, after realization, you realize, or I realized, and I think many do, that it requires a lot of energy up in your head to stay mind identified. When that spell is broken and you don't have to stay up in your head anymore, a lot of that energy is freed, but it's still stuck in your head. Or the energy patterns have been pushing it upward so long that they still do it. So it causes this kind of like accumulation of energy in your head. Well, as you readjust, as you reequilibrate, that energy can kind of redistribute in your body. And so it can feel uncomfortable to push that much energy upward again when you're doing a lot of cognitive work. Maybe I'd say it that way. That's my experience, but I would hold all that very, very lightly. Everyone's going to have different experiences with that kind of thing. And they're going to describe it differently. So, yeah. Okay, where am I at here? My little scrolling feed went nuts and just jumped down a bunch. Okay, here we go. Any advice for working with a wordless sense of urgency, especially around work? Look at don't look. Feel the feeling. And then see, where is the urgency part of it? Is the feeling actually urgency? What does urgency imply? Look at urgency and see what it implies. See that it's cognitive. It has other beliefs that are embedded in it. Urgency has beliefs embedded in it. And then go to the feeling itself. Is there a belief there, or is it a sensation? Is it a feeling? So looking at it from both sides is helpful. And be patient. It doesn't have to disappear. None of it has to go away. When you see it clearly, it won't feel like a problem. You'll see that urgency is a series of thoughts and belief with embedded beliefs, and a sensation is a sensation, a physical experience is a physical experience. Yeah. And that's common. What you're talking about is reasonably common. This is from Monica. It says, my fear was stepping out of a victim narrative and into my power. I feared without realizing it that I would be rejected by everyone, which was still the belief that there were others in the first place. Yeah. Good point. Stepping into your own power can be very challenging. We work on this in a circle or deep shadow process pretty commonly. And it can be because of a kind of victim role. I guess, yeah, if you're not stepping into your power, there's some layer of a victim role, right? But sometimes it's very overt, and sometimes it's much more subversive or just behind the scenes. But the challenge of stepping into your power is a real one. It feels like a barrier. So I just want to acknowledge that. But you can do it, and it's quite fun to watch when someone does it for the first time. And they do it knowingly, and they're willing to state it. And that underlying fear, of course, yeah, that you'll be judged, that you'll be rejected, etc. But that's the funny thing. That's looking still from the lens of victimhood, right? When you're actually in the power, you don't look at it that way because you're like, well, I'm empowered. It doesn't matter what other people think. It matters what I think. It matters what I'm going to do, right? So it's like in that in-between phase. All right. This is from... well, boy, I can't say, that's a long word. I'm just going to say wig. That's interesting. I too went through a long skin thing that I'm getting over recently. I wish you good health. I like Angela's answers. Go into it and be patient. Funnily enough, I found out that swimming in the sea fixed most of the skin issues. Well, that's cool. And led me to a big change in my life. I swim every day. Beautiful. This one is from Cabrono. Something that's been happening a lot for me recently is I've noticed that there is a center that still appears in experience that almost like wants to keep pulling attention from any one of the senses to that imaginary point. What can I do to see through this imagined center? It feels like non-dual is already clear. There is no inside-outside. All sense gates are interpenetrating. But there still remains this tendency. Well, if the non-dual is clear, really clear, and the subject-object is really not there, that will stop. But clarity with non-duality is definitely on a spectrum, in my experience. It can get clearer, clearly. Obviously, it can get clearer. So I would just keep doing what you did to realize non-dual. Stay in that space longer. Stay in the senses longer. Because if non-duality is clear, when I say in the visual field, in the scene, there's only the scene, it is 100% obvious there's no center. And in the felt sense, it is 100% obvious there is no center. And sound, same thing. In the mind, there could be a thought of a center. There could be an imagined center. There could be a visual sense of a center. Those can appear as thoughts. If that's all clear to you, great. But if you still feel like it's a problem and the center keeps reasserting itself, that just means your attention's finding itself in thought more. So just keep redirecting it down into the visual field, into this felt sense, into sound. And it will continue to clarify. That's it. Again, it's on a spectrum. There's definitely shifts that happen, but it's still, there's some aspect of a spectrum to it. Especially in deeper realization, it can be clarified more than I think a lot of people realize. From Claire, it says, since the circling event in June and now working with a guide on fetters 4 and 5, it appears reactivity has just dropped away. Cool. How do I know I'm not dissociating? I want to be thorough. Well, you should know if you're dissociating. If you're dissociating, you won't feel your body. That's it. Drop into your body. Can you feel it? Just because a thought says, oh my God, I'm afraid I'm dissociating, doesn't have anything to do with dissociation. Dissociation is a very clear and obvious pattern of attention and the way consciousness is utilized. So if you can stay in the body sense, you're not dissociating. Even if you bounce out of it here and there and whatever. But if you can drop in and you feel your body, you're not dissociating. Yeah. You're welcome, David and Elaine. This is user FB2. It says, I'm slowly reading your wonderful book. I also heard you mention Tony Parsons at the July online retreat, and I'm slowly reading The Open Secret. My morning reading is opening me up. Any other recs? Adyashanti's book called Emptiness Dancing. It's really good. It says Kali Yoga, the portal of sensation, soundscape, breath. Sensations translate into light as I allow presence. Luminous quality of breath, moving into spaciousness of body. Still reading your book, Luminous. Beautiful. Yeah, it's a nice... It's a nice fruition, is that luminous nature of experience. Anouk says, any clues on how to work with repressed anger? Yes. Feel it. Express it if you can without directing it at somebody. You can make sounds and grunt and growl and yell and, push on something, move your body in certain ways. Like, you can do all that. Do it in a space where you won't scare anybody, but also really look at your boundaries. It's all about boundaries. Look in all areas of your life. Where could you adjust boundaries? Where might you need to adjust boundaries? I'm not saying you do, but usually, like, we can all work on that. We all will work on that here and there, right, in this process. So, yep. Shadow work events in the Northeast. No, not currently scheduled. Vibros says, hi, Angelo. In a few of your videos on the topic of investigating thought, you instruct us to get closer to the thought. Do you have any pointers on how to do this? It's really not about moving closer as much as it is about stop holding distance from thoughts. So there's a kind of biphasic methodology to disidentifying from thoughts. The first part is seeing thoughts as thoughts. If you don't see thoughts as thoughts, you'll be so identified with them, you just won't even realize it, right? You won't even know you have thoughts sometimes. It's just like your inner world is what you think reality is. That's like the most mind identified way you can be. And we've all been there probably periodically. So when you start to notice a thought as a thought, like, oh, that thought about the past, that's a thought. The future, oh, that's a thought, of course. Judgment, that's a thought. Ideas about that person, those are thoughts. Ideas about myself, those are thoughts, right? But what can, and that's plenty, but what can happen, some people kind of become this watcher. They feel like a watcher. Like the thought is out there and I'm like seeing it from a distance. That starts to get a little dissociative, right? You're like almost pushing thoughts away. And sometimes that comes because there's an underlying belief that thoughts, that if you see something as like untrue in some way, you should shove it away, like get rid of it. But this process is not about getting rid of thoughts. That's it. The underlying belief is I need to get rid of thoughts. You don't need to get rid of them. To see a thought as a thought is enough. You don't have to get rid of it, push it away, etc. So it's kind of a correction of that. If you feel like you're pushing thoughts away, just realize you don't have to. You can actually notice thoughts as thoughts and then stay in this spaciousness that almost feels like, it's almost like you're centered in thought or you're centered in any movement of consciousness. But an experience of unbound consciousness even doesn't really even have a center, because a center is also a thought. So it's more about not pushing thoughts away, not holding distance between a thought object and the experience of the subject. So the subject and object are kind of the same thing at this point. This is the experience of unbound consciousness. If the aperture is open wide, such that any thought stirring at any point, anywhere, is immediately recognized, it's also recognized that that which is aware of the thoughts is not at a distance from them. It's all just kind of, the word is like homogeneous. It's all one fluid experience. Yeah, kind of feel into that maybe. Kadams says, since the retreat, I'm noticing the sticky resistance felt sense around thoughts, which I used to dissociate from discomfort. I never really noticed it before. It seems like a big part of the suffering. Yeah, just keep looking, keep noticing these things. Give them space, meaning don't push away, don't struggle with anything you see, just notice it. Keep a kind of neutral space holding with all of your experience, or a neutral noticing. Don't make distance. Yeah. Because distance is an illusion too. That's seventh fetter, but Jack says +1 to Colorado and other places a bit closer to California. Hotel Cartel says, Angelo, thank you for your clarity. I found reactivity, inner conflict, and thinking overall dropping over years, and I can abide in I am. Perfect. Occasionally. But I haven't had a first awakening. Any advice? Stay abiding in the I am. If you can abide in I am, great. But awakening is when you can stay in it kind of any time. And it's like always there, always available. It's like the moment you notice, yes, it's there, right? It's already there. So stay abiding in it as a practice, and be really clear on when any thoughts start to arise that start to bind or define your experience, and just notice them as thoughts and then remain in that I am sense. Notice the kind of homogeneity of it, the sameness of the experience throughout, right? Stay in it. That's what I'd say, is practice it. Hotel Cartel says, I realize this must be a typical noob question, the one above, and I assume the answer is just persist. Yeah. Okay. Question. When you are subsumed in the creative flow act of something, such as performing music, are you lost or found? Not lost. Not found either. They both, lost and found, are dependently co-arising ideas. Shrimply Pibble says, when I experience intense resistance, I always wonder if an unhealthy intuition to help my body get through it, like punching a pillow, could also be a way to distract me. Any tips to differentiate? If your attention is getting down into your physical felt sense more, that's what matters. That's my simple pointer. You know what I mean? If you're dropping in more, then fine. If you drop in more by raging and yelling, and it's like grunting and vocalizing, moving, it's okay, as long as you're feeling. Again, do it in a place where you're not scaring people, maybe. Whatever, but you know what I'm saying. This is from Olga. I can see the resistance toward further awakening in myself. Thoughts and sensations connected, I assume, to early developmental wounds get projected onto what I imagine deeper awakening will bring. Exactly. Just notice, even everything you said, that whole reaction you're talking about, is a mental reaction to the physical experience, right? So the fear is underneath it. So go to the fear. Go to the physical feeling of fear. And don't worry about the story that says I'm trying to do this or I'm trying to prevent that, or, drop into the fear if it's there. Drop into whatever emotion is triggering that mental process, that cognitive process. Especially after awakening, right? That's kind of the name of the game. This is from Melania. Mela91nia says, hi, Angelo. How can I distinguish a spiritual experience from a psychological one? I was meditating and I started to feel afraid of letting go of thoughts and lose myself. So I said to myself, the awareness remains, the experience remains, only the illusion of self goes away. And it happened for a couple of minutes. Then there was only the experience with no me. Beautiful. Sounds like an awakening to me. If it's still clear. Yeah, nice work. Oh, and you don't have to distinguish a spiritual experience from a psychological one. Those are just mental distinctions. Don't worry about that. Nice. Elisa says, which existential wound do you think would cause a feeling of chaos and instability? It could be many of them. Could be any of them in the right setting. But betrayal wound, abandonment wound are probably the most likely. Olga says, especially losing the self, the void, it connects me to deep fear of being alone and not existing. I'm avoiding it, and I think because of that, I struggle with chronic fatigue. Any guidance? Feel the fear. Feel the fear. Especially, you said losing the self, the void. Yeah, these ideas of what it's going to be, how it's going to be, being alone. Like, yeah, fear of loneliness is a very human fear. It's okay. Feel it. If you feel the emotion directly without all the analysis on it and the future projection of fear, which is not the fear. The fear is a physical sensation right now. If you really drop into that, you won't feel alone. The emotion will make you feel here. Strangely, I know, but it's true. It's a grounded feeling. It's intense, but it's here. You know? Yeah. Paradoxical, I understand. It's the thoughts that are the problem, the dissociating thought process. This person says, what's the reason why should I awake, and who is it, and who is trying to wake up? The only reason you should try to wake up is if it's resonant with you, if your instinct tells you that's what you are oriented toward and it's important to you. That's the reason. That's the only reason I know of. Who's trying to wake up? You don't need to worry about that. That'll just put you in analysis mode. Unless you're looking in real time. Like if it's like, I gotta wake up. Wait a minute, who is that thought about? And you're looking to see, not asking me for an answer because an answer is just a thought. Will be just a thought. Will just be like words for you. But if you're really wanting to see in your own experience, that's a great question. But yeah, me telling you an answer is like, it doesn't help, right? So really look into what it is you want to wake up. Look first at do you want to wake up? And why, right? What does that mean to you? What does awakening mean to you? That's the question I would have for you. There's no should about this. Okay. Whoops. There we go. Says, Angela, how you doing? Doing good, thank you. From San Crispy. This is Florian Marketing. Hey, Angelo. As far as I can tell, 10th fetter dropped at Waldingham. I think I talked to you briefly. The ability to have a problem with experience seems impossible. Nice. Formless non-dual clarity isn't causally required for that, is it? I'm not sure the 10th fetter can drop without non-dual clarity. You may have had the 4th and 5th fetter drop. But you can also get, this doesn't always happen in the same order, but you can definitely get an experience of the 10th fetter. But if the 10th fetter, if your perception is there couldn't possibly be a problem structured, right? Because, you know, I guess the question is, why would that be? But if it's not very clear, if it's not fully clear that the self-structure in the time and space that it exists and the subject-object experience such that it could push against things. If that's not all seen through, it usually will reify itself. But maybe not. Yeah. Everybody's different. It says, I'm in the scene is only the scene place since the online retreat, but I've not had anything close to Kensho. It's really dismissed my overall motivation in life because it is so enjoyable. Normal? Yeah, in the scene, only the scene, that's like non-dual, right? If that's the case, you've definitely had a Kensho awakening. If non-duality is clear. But we could be talking about different things. You could be saying something that I'm not referring to, or vice versa. But yeah, it's not uncommon. This does happen for some people, not everybody. But for some people, it's like when you enjoy something so much, it's so enjoyable to be present. Your motivation to chase things in other ways, especially when you were chasing surrogates and they were based on things that maybe weren't deeply aligned, they tend to be less interesting and they tend to fall away more. I do know people who wake up and live much more quiet lives. I also know people who wake up deep realization who stay quite active. So it's variable. It really is variable. And it probably will change. Eckhart Tolle said he sat on a park bench for 2 years because he knew there was nothing that could happen that could add to what he's already experiencing. You know what I mean? Let's see here. For a few seconds while listening to one of your guided meditations, I suddenly couldn't locate my body anywhere. It was very surprising. But in months since, no repeats or any change. Any thoughts? I would not change that. I would not chase that experience. Yeah, I wouldn't chase that experience. Because it'll just become, you'd be chasing a memory, basically. The insight of formlessness is there. It's here. Whether it's super clear or not can vary. But if you try to recreate that experience or make it a goal, you might have challenges. Now, if you're at the place where you want to do seventh fetter work or do non-duality work, then work on it. You know, in the playlist I have, non-duality playlist has a lot of contemplations. So any of those could be helpful to just kind of clarify the non-dual nature of reality. But if you make a mental image or object of that particular event or moment and try to compare your current experience to, that's not really skillful practice because you're only using the mind to do it. To compare something is mind. Does that make sense? Anyway, it's a subtle thing, but I want to make that clear. This is from Zami. It says, sending love back. My ego loves competitive video games. How do I get rid of them? There's a channel on YouTube called The Healthy Gamer. He's like a psychiatrist, and I guess he loves video games, and he talks about things about that, addiction to video games and all this. What's coming to me is do some circling, do some shadow work, and you might uncover some other types of motivations that are distracting you, in a way from things that are more central in your life that could be somewhat more fulfilling, more aligned, but I don't know for sure. I can't answer practical questions for you on like how should you spend your time or your free time, Certainly things like that could become to the level of addiction. They can become habits that are maladaptive to some degree, but they can also just be recreation. People watch TV, people watch movies, play video games. There's a lot of things people do that are not problematic, but they can certainly become problematic. Judy says, for the most part, I can sit in presence and have had those experiences where I have simply sat with the emotions, but one particular deep personal family situation keeps coming up. Okay. I have tried to sit with it, but it is so overwhelming in sadness, grief, sometimes anger, Any suggestions? Write about it. Yeah, write about it. Write it out. Write it out such that, or with the goal that you want to see it more clearly. Slow down, break it down a little bit, look at it from a couple of different angles. That's the kind of thing, if you unpack it, sometimes it'll, whatever it is that's kind of poking at you, will feel satisfied. When something pokes at you like that, like you become calm and you go into sort of presence or a meditative state, and then something comes up and like jabs at you, it's trying to get your attention. And there's something you're not fully seeing about it, usually. That's my experience. So I'd say write about it or talk about it to somebody. Really try to unpack it, see what it is that needs to be fully processed about it. Because it's going to keep knocking on your door until you do something about it, right? Till you let it show itself fully. Jennifer says, I'm excited about October. I was at AOL this past weekend. There were early signs of the fall. The autumn leaves were late last year. Didn't peak until late October. Oh, it will be beautiful either way. Maybe we'll be at the right time for the leaves to be changing when we're there. Claire Bear says, are sensations thoughts? No. I heard this when listening to Fetter 4 and 5 videos and wondered if I had misinterpreted what I heard. Sensations are not thoughts. Nope. But what most people take as sensations are the thought reflection of sensations. Yeah, that's probably what you heard. Sarah, yeah, you're welcome. The retreat was beautiful. Burke says, thank you, Angelo. Your answer opened something up in me. Good. One more. I feel like I see all thoughts and even perception is complete BS. Are you saying that there's something absolute underneath it? It's not really that it's underneath it, but there's something more universal. Yeah, consciousness. In other words, if I keep letting go again and again and again, will there be something real that opens up? Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I can deconstruct everything and there's nothing left. Is that moo? No, see, this is the downside to neti approach, is it doesn't have that cohesive one-pointed of moo. It has a more deconstructive feel to it. So it can become a little dissociative almost. So no, it's a unified experience. It's not something that you have to carve apart. So it's not dividing up anything, and it's not saying not this, not this, not this endlessly. You have to, at some point, recognize the coherence of experience, of consciousness, of being, such that there's nothing to do anymore. It's already there. What would you say is at the root of attraction? I don't know what you mean. Attraction to a person, attraction to an idea, attraction to like desire. I'm not sure. I'm not sure fully what that means. What does that mean? We're getting towards our end of time here, guys. Someone here says, I keep having this experience when I'm talking to people where I'm listening to my voice leave the body and hearing what comes out without feeling like I'm doing it. Strangely, not dysphoric, but sounds like what textbook would call depersonalization. No. If it's not dysphoric, it's not depersonalization. Yeah, you can have all kinds of strange spatial changes and sensory changes as you go through this stuff. Like, the person who said suddenly they couldn't find their body. Like they're aware, but they couldn't find the body. Well, that's weird. Was that dissociation? Probably not, the way they described it. But dissociation doesn't usually sound like that, though. So yeah, there's crossover in descriptions of derealization, depersonalization, dissociation, and even consciousness. There's crossover in descriptions. Experientially, they're different. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Someone here says, also try Adyashanti's The End of Your World. It's really good too. Claire Bear, right on. Nice. Okay. Someone here says, okay, Snufkin says, I get to a space of the visual field, no observer, very obvious. The visual field gets sparkly and wavy, and a very animal feeling of fear shoots through my body. What to do here? Just keep at it. Keep returning to it. Do the same thing with the body sense, though, as well. The felt sense, and then do the same thing with sound. It'll balance out. You're welcome, Susie. Noemi says, I had an incredible insight about no need for transmission, just reality as it appears. Yeah, totally. No light behind the darkness, no happy behind sad, etc. Feels as important as my first awakening 3 years ago. Now it has me lose all ways of understanding and has been quite impactful as to being quiet and letting it sink in. Any thoughts on this? No, you're there. That's it. Just stay with it. Let it show you. Let the experience be your guru. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. We'll see you for Double Barrel Non-Duality in the near future. And next month we'll do all three again. We have Alma, we have the live here, and we have the Double Barrel. So sending you all love, and thank you for your support. Thank you for the work you're doing. Appreciate you all, and I wish you all fruition. Thank you.